Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Ricky Cartwright and I'll be your administrator for the webinar today. So today's webinar is titled Optimizing Production Using DELMIA's Digital Factory Solutions. And this is going to be I think it's the fourth webinar in our series. I'm starting to lose count now, but I think it's the fourth webinar in our series as we're counting down to Digital Construction Week, which is taking place on May 17th and 18th. And we're going to be on the site there for Digital Construction Week with our partners Dassault Systems in stand number D562. So if any of you are visiting that event, we would love to come and meet you there and discuss these topics. So for today's webinar, we've got a fantastic host for you. It's Sofian Sahi. He's a digital manufacturing engineer at Prodtex, and Sofian's got a wealth of experience in production and delivering digital manufacturing solutions for construction. But before I hand over to Sofian and we get started, I just wanted to mention that we've got a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So if any questions pop up during the session, please type them into your Q&A box and I'll compile them all ready for Sofian at the end of the webinar. So please try and get some tricky ones in for us. It's always good to be challenged with different interesting questions. But I think that's pretty much it for me now. So I'll hand over to Sofian and we'll get started with the main webinar content if everyone's ready. So give me 1 second while I just pass the ball over and share my screen. And here we go.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. For those who don't know Prodtex, we are based in Euro North. We've got offices here in the UK in Bristol, in Sweden and also in Norway. Our team in Sweden specializes in automotive, in Norway in infrastructure, and our main focus here in the UK is aerospace and of course construction. The core of our business is Dassault Systems 3D experience. We mainly use DELMIA digital manufacturing solutions. We are a licensed provider, trainer and expert consultants. We also work in robotics and in tooling. We have our own tooling solution called Box Joint, which is a reconfigurable tooling, which we hold a patent for. So today's webinar is the fourth in this series ahead of the Digital Construction Week in London, 17th and 18th of May. We will be looking at how we can effectively respond to change in our manufacturing operations, how we can assess different operations, different scenarios within our manufacturing operations, and how at the back of that we can make an informed decision using all of the data. Along the way, we'll see how we can seamlessly collaborate with the different stakeholders within the business. So as we mentioned earlier, 3D experience is the core of our business. It is a holistic platform that looks at all the elements of a manufacturing operation or a manufacturing business, from design to stress analysis, to all the way to procurement, supply chain, and even marketing. It's the successor of CATIA V5, developed by the same company that developed SolidWorks. Most importantly, this platform makes the latest data available to everyone, makes it very easy to collaborate. We'll be looking today at many of the capabilities of one particular role within the 3D experience suite, which is the process engineer role. We can look at how to plan, how to check, how to assess a manufacturing scenario before we can take action. Our product is the good old Garden Studio Pod. If you've seen our last webinar, we've had an issue with the product, and it's unfortunately too large to be transported to site fully assembled. So we've made the decision to split it into 3 different modules and then ship it like that. Great, so our starting point is always the manufacturing bill of materials. Now, we have not made any amendments to the engineering bill of materials that we've received from the product development department. We've simply taken, or created rather, a different manufacturing bill of materials to suit this specific need now. You can see there we've got 3 modules, and within each module we've got a simple structure, a floor, walls, and a roof. Again, no changes were made to the engineering bill of material. Here we've got the flexibility to add our adhesives, for example, our fasteners, to suit. We can shape this manufacturing bill of materials to suit procurement or to suit a specific manufacturing need. Once we are finished with our manufacturing bill of materials, we're going to start looking at our process now. We're going to adjust our process steps to mimic what's going to be happening exactly on the shop floor. So we start by creating what we call systems. So each of those squares there is a system, and within each system we've got a series of operations. Within each of those header operations we can have as many general operations as we want. We can even have operations such as lifting, loading, unloading before we are even modifying the product in any shape or form. So now we've got a pretty good idea of the process flow and how is this module going to be built. So we add flow in between our operations, and a process Gantt chart is generated automatically. We can go there, we can change our task time, we can look at resources already at this stage. So now imagine you are the manufacturing engineer. You successfully changed, amended your MBOM and your process plan, and you've been set these targets. You need to deliver 1 pod every morning to site, and the first unit needs to be delivered there in 2 weeks' time. So you don't have much time really to think about this. Now you need to bring all you've done and put it within the context of the factory and start adding or allocating the necessary resources to make it happen. You went away, you thought about it. Is the factory even suitable to produce 3 different modules? What kind of production do we opt for? Do we go for stop and go? Do we have a continuous production line? Or do we produce all 3 different modules in different stations in parallel? Now that you've got a rough idea, you can go and start exploring these scenarios. Now, the first scenario can achieve the required lead time. You can build 3 different modules and deliver them to site every morning. But in terms of tooling, you've got your prep areas and you're going to need 3 times more tools, fixtures, jigs in the prep areas to satisfy your need. You can see there that there is a lot of congestion in the walkway, for example. There's a lot going on. You're going to need 3 roof cranes in your main assembly area. But most importantly, your man hours per assembly has trebled. So you're going to need an extra 24 associates. Fine, you are presenting this to your senior management team as one of the scenarios. And this is when your HR manager got the fright of her life. When she saw that you needed 24 extra associates. No problem, you've got it covered because you had the time to look at a different scenario, and now you are presenting the other scenario, which is a continuous production line. This option can also achieve the required lead time. And from this very basic simulation, you can see that there is minimum interstation movement there. There is no waste, not a lot of waste in movement. In terms of tooling, you're only going to need one set per prep area of tools and fixtures. In terms of lifting equipment, you're only going to need one roof crane, and you don't need the extra 24 people. So everyone is happy, you got the thumbs up, and you're going to go and explore this option in more detail. Once you've done this basic simulation, you can go ahead now and start thinking of equipment, stillages, as a first step, for example. We can look at trolleys. They can be AGVs or they can be just simple trolleys that will take the sub-assemblies from prep areas to your main station. You can check fits, clearances. You can test this on different product variants. And bear in mind that you are doing all of this in one platform. You simply have another tab open where you are designing probably all of your equipment from scratch, and you are testing it there and then. Great, now that you've looked at your equipment, you can start looking at people. For example, I'm there with my colleague Mary. We are working on the floor assembly. My colleague Ed is on wall assembly. So we can allocate associates to different processes. We can analyze the resource utilization. We can raise health and safety concerns because they become apparent there. It's very easy to visualize the operation. We can see we've got a bottleneck there in one of the stations. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. Last Thursday, my colleague Ed gave a great presentation on factory flow, and he covered rates and line balancing in detail. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch the recording. Great, you've looked at that now, and on your final go, no-go meeting, you are presenting again. And remember, all of this is linked, so any change that happened at any level will propagate and will show automatically here. So now you are happy with the result. You've got more details. You've got the simulation covering equipment, plant, product, people. You can check your clearances, your fits. Great, roof crane is working perfectly well. Happy days. But this time, you gave your health and safety manager a headache because you didn't think of protecting your associates working in the roof assembly area. Now everyone in the business has got access to what we call a dashboard. We communicate through boards. We can access information such as problem and action logs. We can also assess our key production KPIs, quality, delivery, cost, people. In this case, the health and safety manager simply put a board there on your problem log, clearly showing what the problem is, identified an action, which is a safety barrier. And of course, this is very easy. You can go ahead, incorporate a safety barrier, and of course, you had a go ahead, all good. So in conclusion, I just want to leave you with this. The dream of every manufacturing team is to have a solid plan that covers every detail of the manufacturing operation. A plan is where data is readily available and accessible to all interested parties within the organization. We just saw how agile this tool is. where we're able to assess different options really in a short amount of time. Traditionally, this would have taken a number of visits to the shop floor, lots of measurements, a lot more meetings, longer meetings, to be able to make suggestions, assess ideas, and ultimately make the right decision. So it's all about the ability to manage change very effectively, respond to requirements in a very short period of time. This is a holistic approach, considering your products, people, equipment, tools, layouts. We can easily communicate what would be else very complex set of data in a very simple visual way. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar and found it interesting, and I'll leave you now with my colleague Ricky. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and I'll just take the screen back off you there and share my screen for everyone. Brilliant. Hopefully everyone can see my screen now. Yeah, thank you very much for that. That was a really good scenario there, some great topics discussed. Before we get on to the Q&A session, I just got a few other slides to run through here that I want to talk everyone through. So this one, basically, we're just promoting the remaining webinars in our series. So you can see on the screen here, we've got 3 more webinars to go until Digital Construction Week. So on Tuesday next week at 1 p.m. we've got our next webinar, which is on-site process simulation in the age of experience. I'd highly recommend signing up for that one if you've enjoyed any of the previous webinars in our series. It continues the story through the next steps of using digital simulation and validation for the construction sector. I'll put the link to that one in the chat now, actually. So if you want to sign up for it, the link should be there in the chat for you guys. So please have a look at that, and you can register and book your place on the next webinar. One of the other common questions that we get a lot with these kind of webinars is, how do we get our hands on the 3D Experience software? How can we try it out, evaluate it ourselves? So we've put this slide in to show the easiest way to do this, which is basically with a 3-month minimum cost trial for new customers. So if your business doesn't have any 3D experience at the moment, you can access this this trial. Basically, you can get as many of the different roles that you want to evaluate and try out within your business at a really low cost. So it's really good value. And I'd highly recommend that for anyone who's interested in getting hands-on with this software. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that if you do that, or if you already have it, projects are here to support you on your 3D experience journey. So we offer a range of services to help you solve your production issues, from digital manufacturing consultancy, delivering training and workshops to your staff, and working with you to create a bespoke suite of DELMIA roles to meet your business's needs. So we're here to be your experts and guide you on DELMIA and 3D experience and how it can best work for your business. And that's the final slide there in the deck. So now we've basically got this final slide for the question and answer session. So we've got our contact details up here. So if you do want to reach out to us and discuss any of these topics in more detail, please reach out to either myself or James in the UK, or our colleague Michael in Sweden, who are all well placed to help you. And yeah, that's it. So on to the question and answer then, I guess. Hopefully we've got some good questions put to us. I'm just going to have a look here. I can see we've got one question here that I want to pose. So maybe this is a good one for you. So you, Sophie, and the first one basically is asking, how long does it take to put these scenarios together? So I guess the meaning there is the different scenarios you were showing for the factory. Roughly how long would it take for someone to create something like that?
Thank you, Ricky. Yeah, good question. It really depends on the complexity of the product and of the factory, of the layout, obviously. But compared to traditional means, it probably chops the time by about 90%.
Yeah.
I can manipulate the manufacturing bill of materials using drag and drop in no time. If I would do this, for example, using like a normal CAD environment, it would take a lot longer. In
Yeah.
this specific scenario, for example, probably took a couple of hours to do the MBOM, maybe an hour to do maybe an hour to do the process and a couple of hours to do the MBOM, to be precise. So
Yeah.
it's very quick.
Yeah. And I think, like you say, it's a tricky one, because it's almost like asking how long is a piece of string. It really depends on how complex your manufacturing process is and how much detail you want to go in on the simulation. For some companies, there's real value in simulating really finite details and elements to see, precise issues with clashes or allocations, and resourcing, simulating every nut and bolt. Whereas for other people, it's about simulating the essential things and just the key problem areas or key bottlenecks at a high level of detail, just to get a quick answer before moving on with the development phase. So yeah, you can kind of tailor the length depending on what your needs are, I guess.
Absolutely.
Great. So we've got one more question in here, which is, which software to use for simulation? Is it a digital twin? So basically is it a digital twin's a tricky question, because digital twin, in my experience, it's a fairly open-ended used term. A lot of people use digital twins meaning a lot of different things. Some people would even consider, just like a CAD model as a digital twin. But yes, essentially this software can deliver like digital twins for you. In pretty much whatever your definition of a digital twin is, 3D Experience has the capability to create those replicas for you, whether you're looking at discrete event simulation, or you're looking at more like virtual commissioning, the full interlink with your MES system of getting the real world data into there. You can do all of those things in 3D Experience, and obviously 3D Experience is the software we're using, particularly the DELMIA suite of it. In terms of the actual roles in 3D Experience, which roles did you use for this this work, Sophie? And I guess it was process engineer to create
so it's
MBOM?
either process engineer or manufacturing engineer. So I mostly use process engineer because the starting point is always the MBOM. It's got the ability to do a process breakdown, but it has also the ability to do the simulation as well and bring in the factory layout. So yeah, process engineer would cover all of this, really. I tend to use equipment design engineer as well to do all of my equipment simulation if I want to go really into detail. Otherwise, process engineer is enough to do all of this.
So for anyone who's not aware on the webinar, basically the way it works in 3D Experience is you have like a set of different roles, and those roles will give you different tools within the software. So process engineer is a role, and that gives you different tools that are used for the simulation. And I don't know how many different roles Dassault Systems have put together, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of them to choose from. And basically, if you're interested in getting down to the specifics of that, we've got a lot of experience in the different DELMIA roles, and we can definitely help you on that journey of figuring out what's going to meet your needs for your use case. So feel free to get in touch with us about that. One more question I've had here is, can you bring in point clouds of a factory into 3D Experience rather than having to model it from scratch? It's a really good question. The answer is definitely yes. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, which I guess from your question maybe you didn't, our last webinar that we delivered, we had a large section on point clouds where basically we were showing that there was we literally just used an iPhone, one of the newer iPhones that's got a LiDAR scanner on it, and we scanned a section of the car park outside of our office, and we brought that into 3D Experience and used that to simulate the on-site installation of a modular structure, basically to see how we could lift it into place, if it would fit, if the lorries could get in to deliver it. So I'd recommend going back and watching that I'll put the links again in the chat to access our previous webinars in a second. But yeah, I think that would be a really good one. But yes, in summary, you can bring point clouds in, work with them. There's lots of really good tools for that. And obviously that can save you a lot of time having to model up and replicate your factory if you don't already have it. And then one more question I've got here, I'll hand this one over to you, Sofian, I think, is what if I don't have finished detailed tooling to help with the simulations? Can I use concept data or space allocations?
Yes, good one. So this is actually the beauty of 3D experience. You don't need to have finished detailed tooling. You can just have a concept and it will work the same. It will give you a very good idea of space utilization. It will give you a rough idea on clashes. It will tell you, for example, if the factory is suitable for, I mean, you would have the size of your product. It will give you insights on safety aspects as well. And you can keep growing this model, I guess. You can keep adding detail as you go until you get to your final solution, and then make the right decision starting from there. So yes, you can do as many iterations as you'd like, whether it is related to your product or your tools or to the factory as a whole.
Fantastic. And then I think probably we'll make this the last question because we're running short on time now. But we have one more question here I wanted to ask, and this is basically the question's asking, if I want to simulate in 3D experience, do I need to also design in 3D experience? So would the product need to be designed in 3D experience as well in order to use the simulation tools, I guess, is the gist of the question there, Sofian. So what do you think of that?
Not necessarily. You can bring models that have been designed in a different environment. You can bring Revit models for construction people. You can bring BIM models. You can bring SolidWorks models. Pretty much any step file, and you can work with it and simulate it. And if it's a product, you can make an MBOM and a process starting from there. If it's a tool, you can go ahead and even create kinematics on it. So no, it doesn't need to be created in 3D experience for it to be simulated in the platform.
Definitely. And I think that's one of the nice things with 3D experiences is kind of like very agnostic with the data like that. It's open to, allowing you to bring in pretty much any data. Obviously, I think one thing to mention is if you, as you get into the software and start to use it more, and if it becomes a bigger part of your business, there are some benefits to having natively designed 3D experience models. If you wanted to really get into like parametric design of your product and scripting and having that all integrate with different variants of your product and things like that, then having it natively designed in 3D experience would make that process run a bit more smoothly and work a little bit better for you. But I think that's probably, by the point you're looking to do that, you're going to be heavily invested in 3D experience for simulation anyway, and at that point you can kind of assess those benefits and start to think about that. So definitely for people that are new to the software or coming into it, I'd recommend, if your main focus is the simulation side of things, then sticking with your current design processes and starting to simulate initially, and then there's always room to grow and add from there if you see the value for it. So
absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I think we're pretty much up on our time there for today. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for attending. I put that link in the chat to access our past webinars. So if you haven't seen them all, I'd highly recommend going back and having a look. And hopefully we'll see you all at the next webinar on Tuesday. And thank you very much, Sofian, for taking the time to put this together for us and talking us through this. I think it's been a really good session.
Thank you very much, Ricky.
Okay, thanks again, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.